Hey there, I'm back. Does anyone miss me? It's an interesting question I've had to ask myself lately. Missing people, longing, belonging. Does anyone belong anywhere? Really? The answer is no. None of us do. Most of us are here. We spend our lives for our brief friends. We shine. We fade away. That's it. Some of us will be remembered. Some of us won't be. Some of us will leave a mark. Some of us won't. Some of us will live forever in the hearts and minds of many of the people that love them, and some of us will never be remembered at all. Some of us might be hated instead, might remember for the wrong reason. Right, for the wrong reasons indeed. Me, I don't know what that's going to be. Quite frankly, I thought in the last couple of years that finally I'd be remembered for the right reasons now. Being the person at the right place at the right time, doing the right thing for the right people, and making the right decisions. Well, sometimes you come along to the situation and you realize it's just much too late for that. Much too late to make as much a difference as you thought you could make. Much too late to matter as much as you thought you did. And it's not always your fault. Believe in me, it's not always your fault. It's just the fact sometimes you just come too late. Sometimes you do things too late. Many of us have made decisions that we think back, I wish we could have done this much earlier in our lives, and planned this whole trajectory of things that we wish we could have done had we done it right the first time. Well, that's unfortunate. Life is not, you don't get redos. It's not like a movie where if you have it taped wrong, you can just retake the whole thing again and edit and splice it together and make the perfect life out of everything you have. It plays out linearly. Unfortunate, isn't it? Definitely unfortunate. So, as we go along, living our lives, doing the things we do, thinking the things we sort of create fantasies and, how would you say it, the best word to put it, illusions about the life we're living into so we can cope with it. Meaning, like when I was away one point in time in my life in a place I did not want to be, it was very sad and very lonely and very, very long. I lost a lot of hope. And I was glad there was people out there that were still believing in me in spite of my failings, in spite of my faults, in spite of all the things I did. They believed in me still and were willing to stand by me no matter what. No matter what other people thought of me. And which is kind of funny and ironic in one way, because the fact is most of my life I didn't think I had anybody that did that. I didn't think anybody had any that really wanted to, that ever did that for me. But I had certain people that always did. And I don't know why. Like my mom. She never wanted me. But then again, who wants to have a baby at 17 going 18 years old? Nobody does. I could have easily been after birth on the floor of an abortion clinic. I could have easily been adopted by another family. Who knows? Maybe that family would have treated me better. Maybe they would have given me the life that maybe I thought I deserved, maybe I should have deserved, or needed. Or maybe things might have been worse. Funny about thinking about maybe what things can maybe be. Things are never ever what you maybe think they will be. They can't be. You and I, all of us, are intertwined by not only the decisions we make, but the decisions all the people that our lives intersect us make. You can't help it. We're all intertwined. No decisions that simple, no decisions that easy, no decision is that much in our control. Many of those decisions are in nobody's control, really. All those decisions are in circumstances control. Being at the right place at the right time, being born to the right family, or sometimes being born in the wrong family, being born in the wrong place in the world, being born the wrong time in history, wrong time of the month, wrong time of year, wrong time in someone's life. Or in this case, the wrong time into someone's life, in my case. The two someones were my parents. They were not at all ready for what life was going to throw at them. Not at all. And especially my dad. He already thought he had it all figured out. He figured he had his everything he wanted. He had girls wanting him. He was popular. At least to him, he was popular, and in his eyes, he was popular. And he wasn't a jock. He was an artist. That's what he sort of gravitated towards. That was the thing he felt he was really good at. That's the thing he aspired to do. So he went to Alba Technical High School. I don't know how he got there, but eventually got there and took the commercial art program and did relatively well in it. He won the Ted Ide Award, is what they called it, which was an artistic excellence award they gave. I'm just going to get myself going. Artistic excellence award they gave to students at that particular grade level. I think it's grade 12 because they didn't have grade 13 at the time for art. And he was hoping and destining to go off to greater things like art college, or maybe get a scholarship, or maybe get hired by some fancy commercial art firm and become this really whiz-bang artist. I don't know what his aspirations were. I never talked to the man. All I know is what I got from the impressions of him about what his path was. Unfortunately, he had a problem. The problem is the spot between his fucking legs. Funny how that works, doesn't it? How a single spot in your fucking body can make decisions for you that you consciously don't even know you're making. How that drive to be with someone in a physical way, especially if you're heterosexual, or even if you're not, doesn't matter. This drive to be with someone, in this case mostly heterosexual, that's most people are, but to be with someone and have a relationship with them and have that type of carnal relationship with someone drives your needs so much that you sacrifice everything else that you claim to care about. Well, in my dad and mom's case, my mom wasn't really looking for a relationship. She wasn't looking for love. She was just looking to be liked. Kind of funny it's went full circle, hasn't it? That's exactly what I did. I made the exact same mistakes she did, but different, in different ways. I made them for the same reasons. I made different mistakes, I should say I made different mistakes, or in some cases very similar mistakes, for the same types of reasons she did. I just want to be like, I wonder where that came from. Well, in her case, it came from a father who didn't really want to be a father himself. He was tricked by circumstance to be a father when he was very young, by a woman who had no intentions of being faithful to anyone, ever. She was a party girl, and because of that, and the circumstances of him meeting where she did, he came in contact with her during the war. He was unfortunately unable to go to war because his mom wouldn't let him go to war. He was only 17 at the time. During the war, his parents had to sign off on all these types of decisions to go over if you weren't 18 or going by. They would not. They told him, if you want to go to battle so much, you can go to reservists. In this case, it would be Summerside and PEI where he ended up. Or, that's it. You stay home. Because I can't let you. You'd have to go through some sort of thing. You'd have to get a job, maybe, because you're underage. You're underage to go to war. You're not allowed to. You're not allowed to have permission. So he took that up. Probably expecting the war would last longer. Probably a lot of people thought it would. It had gone since that time. It was like 1943 when this came about. And 1943-44 was an auspicious year for me, unfortunately, in a lot of ways. My own father was born around that time. He was born around before the end of the war, just like my mom, father, who wasn't her father at the time. The one that would eventually be her father would go to Summerside and especially see meet this one girl, this party girl in PI, being young and that, who was floozy and would throw herself at any guy that had money. And being a young buck like my grandfather was, he got involved with her. He must have had sex probably the first time he had sex with her. Well, maybe that was his first time having sex with her. Didn't know nothing about nothing. Didn't know idea about pregnancy. Didn't know nothing about that. But didn't realize at the same time, since she was a party girl, she partied hard with all kinds of people. She would F and fuck anything that moved as long as they had money to pay for her habit and her booze. And I think she also smoked at one point in time too. Incident. I don't know if it's for sure. I never saw it, but I suspect she probably did at one point in time because that was kind of the dominant sort of Nate case. She was one of the several members of her own family, and she was a wild one. And especially because her father died so young, her mom had to raise her sister, and other siblings, and her brothers all by herself on a limited amount of money, and she was a really, really hard one to control. My mom worked very, very hard to keep things going. She had no time to manage this particular piece of business. As a result, she got pregnant. She didn't know who it was. I think maybe she did, but she didn't. As far as I know, she didn't know. Maybe she did. The guy that ends up turning out to be the father of this particular child, in this case, that precipitated the change that led to my existence, was a man who was from America. He was an Irish guy with red hair. And she knew his, I don't remember the name, said it doesn't really matter. That's still a story that really is incidental. He went back home to eventually go to his wife and family, had kids. He already had a family. While he was doing this, he was here avoiding, I guess he was avoiding the war, but I don't know what the hell's probably, he was here for some reason. And he was in Summerside, happened to wander across her. Maybe not necessarily Summerside, could have been Halifax, because she tended to travel a lot around the Atlantic Canada region. She tended to go to other places a lot, which she continued to do for the majority of her life till near the end. So she got with him, she got pregnant, and obviously she told him, because she obviously figured out it was him, because there must have been a little timing in that, and he said, I can't do this, I'm going back home, I got a family back home. So he got tailed and left. So this young girl, who was, I don't know how old, she was in her 20s at that time, pregnant, with no prospects of any employment, no skills, no nothing to really do other than setting on her back, which is not really a skill, I don't think, really. It's just sex, and they're not to really be good, just as long as the guy thinks you are. Just don't moan hard enough and make him feel good. And that's the sad part. Us guys, we're so easy to fool. Anyway, so he goes away, and then what happens is she's going to have this kid, and her sisters or somebody in her family decide that she knew that this guy she was with Glendon. Maybe they thought she was a foolish and gullible guy that he would believe it. And of course, what happened was he did. He bought her hook, line, and sinker. He thought this kid was his. The kid was already alive and born by this time, and was living with her, very young. So he came back, did what he felt was the honorable thing because he thought he was the father. He wasn't the legal father yet because, of course, at the time she was born before he was there. So he went, he got married with her, adopted this son named Gary. At this time, I don't know if he named it Gary. The kid was named Gary. I think, like I said, he must have always had a name before that. So he adopted Gary. Proceeded to stay in a relationship with my grandmother, even though eventually he did get into the regular services after the war and stayed with the services because he was already in the armed forces. He was already 18 now. He could join permanent services, so he did. And then he could go in other stations like Germany and other countries and that, so forth. And he stayed with my mom and eventually got into having a relationship with her because obviously now they're married. And because he was in the military, that he had a place to live and he was able to give her a place to stay for her and Gary, and eventually my mom, who came along a couple years later. Ironically, and we find out later, she is his only child. And all of us are, as well, his only real grandchildren. Even though he considered all the ones from Gary that came on his own, never treated him or them differently, the fact is, in the end, we all knew. We all eventually found out, and we all knew. We all knew in the end. Anyway, so that's not the thing I'm talking about. So what happens is, being the fact that he was overseas a lot, and she didn't want to go overseas, he wanted to go to Germany. He had booked to go to Germany, told her he was going to Germany. She agreed to go to Germany at the very last minute, she decided, and this is a few years into it, they got to Germany. The kids were about 12 at this time, 12 and 14. Or 10 or 12, well, they were young. Anyway, I don't know exactly the timeline for this. I just know the general prognosis. She didn't want to go. She asked her son. She finally decided she wanted to stay there. Of course, we knew why now in retrospect, but then I don't think he knew. Maybe he did. Okay. My mom, because there was a train station used to exist in Pia. The old train station happens to be now the Bronx Library because now there's no trains anymore. It's all been buses and ferries. The trains that used to cross over the bridges on the ferry are long since gone. There were vestiges of history. But the train station is still there. That was the train station she went to, desperately asking her dad, please, oh please, take me with you. Put me in the sack of your luggage. I don't care. And he knew he couldn't do that, obviously. So he had to go. And he couldn't take her with him, really, because he knew that one thing about the service was families were one thing. Single men with children were another thing. Because the unspoken rule in society was single men didn't get to raise single children, especially girls. Wonder why. Think about that for a second. Think about, with all the crimes you hear about in society, why that is not the case. Why that is not a really preferred situation. That even in society we have difficulty dealing with, and the implications of morality about that particular aspect. So she ended up staying home with her mom. And of course, her mom, being the party woman she was, She ended up having to she stayed in the base because she had a spot in the base because obviously being a mother of children, she was married to a serviceman. Even though the serviceman, she stayed, but she probably didn't like the base because it wasn't close enough. It was in Slumming Park. It wasn't close enough to her party buddies. So she moved off the base to Summerside to be closer to her drinking buddies, which several times she had incidents with them. One incident was involving a theft regarding the liquor store in PEI, the Legion in this case. Cigarettes and drinks were stolen. The guys came over, knew about her. She offered to hide them for them. They eventually were searching and found them there, and because of that, she was asked to leave Summerside for good at that point in time because of what she did. She didn't get charged. She just got kicked out of town. So I think she ended up probably going back to her mom's in Illercy, which is where it happened. And what happened because of her lifestyle, when she kept to continue to party, she tended to leave my mom alone a lot. Gary was a little older. He was more self-sufficient. I guess at that point to being a couple of years old. But Mom was left alone a lot. A lot of times she was left at home with nothing in the fridge. No clothes clean, nothing to wear, really, other than what she had that wasn't clean. She had to clean herself. And they didn't have washing machines back then. It was pretty primitive. It was washboards and scrubbers. And these, if you were lucky, you had a wringer wash or whatever. But she didn't have. She was a young kid taking had fending for herself with no food. And her mother came. And her mother, on her mother's side, of course, because living in PEI, she was now living away from her rest of her dad's family because her dad's family was from Ottawa. And she found her dad and said, I can't leave. She stayed there waiting and waiting. Once Mom would come, she waited and waited. Took her to a restaurant. She had to eat. She pigged on everything. Proceeded to throw up. Someone that has nothing all of a sudden decides to go from famine to feast, and sometimes feast doesn't work. Well, doesn't. So it ended up, she took her back home. She waited away, and she said, when's she going to come? And finally realized she wasn't going to come at all, so she said, I guess I'm going to have to stay here until your mom gets home. She stayed, and eventually, after much things have happened, many other instances happened, her mom hightailed out of town and left the kids with her mother. And my grandfather ended up sending that she wasn't living anymore. She was no longer caring as a custodial parent. She left her custodians to her dear old mother, who was definitely having a tough time. My grandfather sent money to them, and that was to help. They ended up helping out, not just take care of those kids, but also to help the family, given the family was in a very bad state anyway. So we're looking at from her point where she didn't have a really good start. She made the best of her childhood, though, even though her mother wasn't part of it, really. She made the best of it anyway. She played with her cousins, and she played with her aunts, because in this case, one of her aunts named Carol was only 5 years older. Kind of a history repeating itself thing, as I'll explain later on, and say it's sort of like a reverse history, because this is happening to my mom's side of the family, and this is not it's a parallel to happen later on. My dad's side of the family, a similar incident happens with him, but it's interesting to note. I'm just gonna check my time to see how I've been going. I've been going for 18 minutes. Oh, we've got lots of time. So anyway, all that goes on, and my mom's living with, and she's growing up. Her father's coming in and out of her life. At one point in time, I don't know exactly when the story was, they lived, I guess there was one point in time they actually did leave the island for a while, because she was living on Ottawa Hall for a while, and I guess at that point in time, obviously, they were living together. There was a lot of incidents I didn't get into at one time. I don't know the whole story as well as all the parts and so the mechanics of it, but let's just say it was a very, very messed up situation overall. Eventually, she got old enough, and her father came home and decided to want to go back home to Ottawa, where his family was. His mother and father were still alive. And because he was unable to, by the way the law worked, keep custody of his own young daughter, the son had already gone out to trade school, so I don't know what he was doing specifically. At that time, he wasn't really, I didn't really get much of the story of that. But she wanted to live with her dad. She couldn't live with her dad because she was under the age of 15, or I think it's 15 or 16, under the age. She was considered too young to live with her father because of whatever reason, I don't know, age of consent or whatever, or age 14 or whatever. So what happened was she ended up being that time living with her great grandmother and his husband, the grandfather, and his wife, his grandparents, her grandparents, his parents for a while, and then he got a place in Ottawa, and eventually he was able to take her in under his wing and become a family again, because he was able to take control. He was able to take custody of her at that point in time. But she's basically almost a grown woman at that point, between 14 and 16 anyway, as far as maturity is concerned. Anyway, she's over all the damage of everything that's been done to her since. It's already been done a long time ago. And when she came to Ottawa, because her father wanted to make up for all the lost time, he used to give her a bunch of money every week for an allowance. And since he didn't know he didn't allow spend time when she was getting alone, she never knew all these people. This is a new city. She literally been plucked out of PI. She lived all her life, and so that's in the situation of going to school in Ontario from PEI, which is a completely different set of situations. Having to catch and acclimate to that, and then also try to make new friends. Well, what happened? She didn't technically make really new friends the first couple of years because she went to Glebe High School in Ottawa, a collegiate high school which demanded really, really high standards, and she'd come from a country bunkin' vocal school, local vocal school. So, which they didn't really have much French there because even though ironically enough there's a large French population, could be there wasn't at that time a mandate to learn French as much as like in Ontario where the English and French are more predominant in terms of being announced to Quebec. So she learned basic French, but she wasn't advanced. So what happens was, so she was behind on somebody she was ahead on. So eventually, after much effort, she ended up going to Commerce High School, which is now an adult training center, which is ironic. They moved. I don't know if there is still a Commerce High School. There is. I know there's a tech school. I don't know if there's a commerce school equivalent anymore. I really haven't just looked into that part. But it's not relevant to the story. Anyway, she went to Commerce, and she met a few people there. One of the people she met there was the person that would eventually be the wife of, well, now ex-wife of one of the people that also would come into the story. In this case, Gordy, my dad's nephew. And this is where the story gets really interesting. See, my dad, being the youngest child, he was born after the war. My uncle came home, Uncle Alfie was the oldest, came back from the war, and came home with his mom, had told him, congratulations, you now are a brother again for the 5th time. So he came home to like a 1 or 2 year old child who was named Herbert Arnold James. What a combination of names. Especially the Herbert one. He hated her. Matter of fact, I don't know if he ever knew his name was really Herbert, because what happened, nobody ever called him Herbert. Eventually, I don't think even his dad, who probably named him Herbert, didn't call him Herbert because his brothers didn't call him Herbert. Nobody called him Herbert. His mom probably didn't call him Herbert. He was known as Arnold. And that's what he thought he was. He thought he was Arnold Herbert James. That's the name he thought he always was until he saw his birth certificate, ironically enough, years later, and found out that exactly wasn't his name. But since the way name conventions work is all 3 of your given names can be used at any point in time to identify yourself, as long as you identify the fact that you are this person. Other than that, said that you're not really changing who you are, you're just changing the name you use to be given as your given first name. You can do that, believe it or not. I didn't think about that you could do that. That's the idea of having secondary names, because if you don't like the name you got, maybe that's to give you a chance to change to another one without having to go through a lot of trouble to do it, which would be like the way you would if you had to change your name completely to something else, legally at least. So anyway, so he comes along, he's going along in his life, he's going to school, he has, his brother had kids, and the first kid he had, which happens to be Gordy. And Gordy is about 2 years younger than my dad, and for a period of time, through circumstances of their parents having unfortunate incidents happen, they ended up living briefly with his brother and his wife and a couple of the kids. I don't know how many kids were born at that time when Gordy was there. I think Brian might have been there. I think Darlene might have been. I'm not sure. I don't know. I know it was Darlene for sure, and maybe Brian. At that time they were around. And that was probably all at that time. And he was living there for a while, and of course they got very close. And I think there's like they ran like brothers. In a way, it's like my dad was, even though he was his uncle, he was actually his older brother. And Gordy tended to be the type of person that loved to take on the idea of being in charge. He's eaten better, but he still has. Anyway, he happened to be, for whatever reason, going to Commerce High School, of all things, which incidentally was where he met Darlene, the girl that came into the story along with a friend, Kathy. Now, before that part really happened and got really going, what happens, you gotta understand the thing. My mom wanted to be like, she came from a place that was nowhere, dropped in a situation where she knew nobody. She was considered the homely girl by most people. She wasn't the beauty. She was never going to be the beauty. That's just the card she was dealt. She had to live with the card. She was okay looking. And I guess in the world, okay doesn't really do good as far as finding mates. Guys want really good looking women, but there's a problem with good looking women. Almost all of them become incredibly fucking ugly when they get older, because if you higher, the old saying is the bigger you start, the harder you fall. Well, that applies to beauty as well. If you start on the high of the beauty scale, why do you think so many celebrities have to go through so much trouble to get plastic surgery to cover the fact that once upon a time they looked good? that they were in an industry where being good looking, I mean really incredibly good looking, was important. And as you got older, when that goes away, guys can get cultured and get weathered, where women get old, hag, and weary and disposable. That's just because the way society judges it, not just from the men's point of view, but the women's point of view too, ironically. Sometimes more so even. Women are actually more judgmental. But that's on a side note. Anyway, my mom being an average-looking girl from a bumble place of P, didn't have a lot of friends and was very shy and didn't have a very self-conscious, didn't know how to get along. Met these two other sort of average sort of girls as well that were looking to be friends. And she made friends with her. And this one girl, Geraldine, she had a stern German mother and a really weak-leaning German father, as she was from a German family. And she had met my cousin Gordy. Well, he wasn't my cousin this time, but she met my cousin Gordy. Was Gordy's coming. And during this time that happened as well was my mom was being friends with her, had a little bit of money. Darlene never did. Kathy never really did. My mom had this big bag of money that she was getting at that time, like $30, which is a lot of money back in 1940s for a kid to get. That's a big allowance. That's a lot. So because she had never had this much money before, and she's been let go, and she wanted to be like that. She went to a place called Fetterman's Bakery and used to buy baked goods. And as a result of her and her friends enjoying these delectable baked goods, they gained a massive amount of weight. Not incredibly massive, but enough that you take an average-looking girl, it's gonna make it harder and harder to sell that package on the shelf, no matter what, because most people are looking for the superficial, beautiful, looking girl, and they were not that. They never would be, but they were never going to be as much so that as well. But my dad, being a person that didn't have a lot of people, he still thought it was God's gift to women. He had a couple women that were onto his knees. I don't know how these women looked. I still this day don't know what these women, including the one that he kept going on, Claudette. And the story about Claudette's more interesting, but I might not talk about that one. I don't think you need to know that one. Anyway, enough of that. Anyway, because my mom was insecure, and because my cousin Darlene, well, the one that would become my cousin Darlene, after she married Gordy, years later. But at that time, before he came into the story, she was dating Gordy. Before she met Gordy, she was hanging out with Gordy. Anyway, what happened back that day, her mom insisted that she always went doubles. And what happened was, the guy, she was trying to get my mom to go doubles, and the guy she was supposed to go doubles with, because she really wanted to go Gordy on a date, was a guy named Bruce Weatherall. And now Bruce, for whatever reason, didn't show up. I don't know what the reason was. He wasn't even available. So she had to think, and cousin Gordon said, hey, this guy Arnold, my uncle, who's about my age, he's not seeing anybody really. He might want to go out have a cool laughs. So the four of them went out to a date, had a relatively good time, I guess. And before you know it, Gordon and Darlene and Arnold and Judy, became a night. Very much so. And especially because the one thing my dad wanted more than anything is he was smoking at that time, and cigarettes, even to them, was an expensive habit if you didn't have a lot of money kicking around and you had to scrape by. His family wasn't doing that well. His family were doing okay, but they weren't doing that okay. I don't think he had a job at that time, as far as I know. I have no idea if he ever had a job when he was a kid. Maybe he did. I don't know. Never, ever found out. But he didn't have a lot of money. So what happened was, because he kept bumming, so my mom had money, so can you give me some smokes? And it's ironic thing that happened was that this shy waif girl had nobody really, this first guy she was ever interested in, as far as she didn't know any experience in life about anything about this guy or life, gave him the money to buy cigarettes, and it made him feel her good because he wanted to be with her. And the sort of magical thing happened. The more he smoked away her money, the more her weight disappeared. Isn't that a funny phenomenon? Take away the fat stuff, give the money to someone else, and see what happens to your body. So anyway, so in the meantime, when all this was happening, she was having this relationship, she was losing weight, and everything seemed to be going fine, everything was going great for her. But the problem was there was an underlying thing that was happening. There was one guy that was in the equation that didn't come into the story that could have changed everything for everybody. It was a guy that was going to college, lived next door, that she had a real crush on. But she didn't think there was no chance, being a college guy and a really good-looking guy, apparently, from what she described. She never had a chance that he'd ever be interested in a girl, especially when that was bigger and not so pretty. So she was happy to be with my dad, and because my dad was the type of guy that he wanted his whatever the hell he wanted to, she got engaged in sexual activity very quickly and thought she had figured out a thing called the Thurman method. Apparently, you're supposed to figure out exactly when you can possibly get pregnant, because my dad did not like condoms, something that I unfortunately inherited as well, to my regret, because my parents never talked about sex. They never talked about reproduction. I missed biology class because I got switched schools by the fate of having grown to one school that had biology in grade 10 and the other school had biology in the grade 9. Again, see how fate pays its way in its ugly head in every story when you really get down to it. So anyway, to make all story, we're going to cut here because we're at 30 minutes. Anyway, they ended up going, and one night they were together, and he said, "If you love me, you will let me." And she did. And 9 months later, I came along. But in the meantime, after she found out she was having me, and all that, the guy, that of course by this time she had lost a lot of weight, decided to ask her to go out. And unfortunately she had to tell him, "Sorry, I wish you would have asked me sooner. I'm a couple months pregnant." What an incredible, incredible misfortune that was. How her life would have been if the guy she really wanted, who had an education, was going to go in higher learning and would have probably taken much better care of her and all the things that she always wanted in life and always could, any woman at that time thought and dreamed of, a life of a home and family, that, and being loved by a man, and all the happiness that could, was all curtailed because of the fact he made one bad choice of being with someone who in the end would never, ever love her. And would use the love so, the word flippantly, in such a cruel meaning way for his own means. Short say. And then years later, after they got married, and they finally got married because the family kind of pushed him to get married, he said that my grandfather told him that if he didn't marry my mom, that they were going to give me up for adoption. Now, I don't know if that was true. My dad had a tendency to exaggerate and lie about a lot of things, I found at the end. But that was what I was told about. That's his excuse. I think it was just his parents and family basically made him guilty that you made this mess, you need to clean it up. Be a man. Be a fucking man. So he married her. Years later, he would turn around and say to her, "Oh, the girl Claudette came and said, if I'd known you were wanting to get married and have kids, I wish you would have asked me," as a dig at my mom to try and put her in her place. So after all the indignity and not being loved and neglect that she went through all of her life, how the fuck was I ever, as far as her side concerned, ever get the love, kindness, and support that I needed to have a selfie and happy life after the start I had? I was fucked. I was fucked in so many ways I didn't know. I've got disabilities, which sort of made it hard for me. But in spite of that, in spite of all that, she did love me in her own way. And she continues to love me in the same way. And she stood by me at times. But unfortunately, some of those circumstances are partly her fault. Because of the choices she made, it cascaded down to the choices she made in terms of bringing us up. And the lack of skills. And being unprepared to be a mother. And being with a man that was blatantly unprepared to be a father. He wouldn't want to be a father. Matter of fact, he even turned around and said, "I ruined his life, that if I wouldn't have came along, he would have had this great life." But you know what the funny thing, the ultimate irony is? He has no clue if he ever would have had that. Maybe he never would have made it. How does he ever go and know he would have made it? There's no way. He didn't make it in the end. Ultimately, the fate was he wasn't going to make it. He just didn't want to accept fate. He'd rather blame someone else for his misfortunes, blame himself for his mistakes, blame himself, and then blame himself for what was his. So the thing is, no matter how much you think you've got control of life, and how much you think you got the life by the balls, and you know where you're going, you think you're doing well, and you think that you know your place, and you think you know where you belong, life comes along and reality comes along and reminds you just how much you are wrong. There's things and circumstances that are always beyond your control in life about anything. All you can do is manage a little bit that you have control of and be thankful for that. Do the best you can with the little bit you got, and make sure that you don't make another person's life miserable as a result of the consequences of other people's life making you miserable. To make the right choices, that's the hardest thing to do, because we're all selfish. We all want what we want for ourselves. It's what we are. But to lay with a lighter note, I want to get off of this sort of down and out note. I've been sort of dragging you down, telling you a little bit of the tales and woe of my life. The fact is, my life is what it is, for better or worse. It's a story. It could have been a made-up story. Matter of fact, I could have made this whole story. Matter of fact, this could all be fiction for I know. Would you believe it? Who knows? Maybe you would, maybe you wouldn't. I know it's real, but that's the thing. You don't have to, there's no way you could know. There's no way, unless you've lived my life and watched this river and was able to go back and see all the evidence going on, everything was going on, you would never ever be able to tell that anything I said was true. You just have to take my word for it. And that's what makes a story a story. So, here's the thing, okay? My story has not ended yet. It's had some good tales, it's had some bad times, it's had some sad times, it's had some disappointments, it had some setbacks, it's had some reality checks. Today was a reality check day. I found out the fact that I am not responsible for the man that was my friend and fiance's son. I was quickly reminded by the fact that I attempted to interject myself in a decision regarding money and finances regarding him in terms of giving him help. And when I did so, I was rebuffed by her so hard for the reason was, oh, he's working so hard, he's having a tough time, he can't afford it. Maybe he can't. But the thing is, at least we should talk about it. If we're working together as a team, we're actually a couple, and we're treating the situation as if I was his biological father, and it was our money, and the thing we were talking about was something we both owned that was ours, that we're deciding to give him or give him use of and find a way to give it to him that's fair, not just to him but to us, so that he appreciates what it is. In the end, I got overruled again. And reminded very, very blatantly that I'm just a tenant in this life of hers. When I check out, who knows? Maybe she'll replace me with another tenant. Who knows? But the thing is that I kind of knew that was the way it was to begin with. Part of me always knew that I was only going to be a tenant in his life, because the fact is, I've been a tenant in everyone's life I've been in most of my life. I've never ever been the landlord. I've never ever been the co-owner of the life I stepped into. I'm always stepping into somebody else's life, somebody else's situation, somebody else's thing, attempting to be a part of it. And was reminded many times in the end just how wrong that was to do. That I need to just keep my place and wait to be invited into it. I can't assume it like everything else, because it's not real. It's not mine to take. It's a life that's not mine to take. It's the life they have to invite. Unlike being a father to a child where you are involved because you're responsible, because you created it, you were there, you were at the very beginning. When you come into somebody else's situation, when somebody else's life with somebody else's kid, you're not have any right to expect or demand or even want to have as much authority and say in that particular decision as the person who has been there from day one. You just came in. You just interfered in the story. As much as he calls me dad, as much as she keeps telling me that, the fact is, actions speak louder than words. And I don't think she understands that. How hurt that is that I was told that I was more to him, that she wanted me to be more, truly more, to treat him in every way, shape, or form like he's my flesh and blood son. That would mean I have the right to interject in decisions. I have the right to help in any decisions about helping him. I have the right to tell him what I think, and I have to give advice like he was my son. And all the things that mattered as if I was the man that raised him from day one. But the truth is not. I don't think she really wanted that. Ever really wanted that. I don't think she really considered that. She says she wants that, but the actions are she's been so used to raising them on her own, taking care of them on her own, all this time with the various men that came in our life, that I don't think she's ever going to trust anyone to totally just let them in. And I have to make a decision. Do I accept that and just continue on and make the best of the situation like I've done most of my life? Or do I move on and find someone that will? I'm getting too damn old to do that. I just have to hunker down, make the best of it, maybe hope one day she'll open the door and let me really in. Maybe she never will. But that's it. This is what happens when you step into somebody else's life. A life that you weren't there to help create. A life that you weren't there to help foster. A life that you weren't part of from the very beginning. And there's a lot of people like me that have done this type of thing. But on a lighter note, I had a couple of videos I did. We were at a site a while back, and back in October, that one of her sisters and her husband owns a site. He has a couple of sites there, sort of rough land outside of where they live in Lanark. Was it Louisville, Quebec? And there's one side that's a family plot. That one of the plots is you had an old trailer bus put up there, and a couple of things over and reach onto the river, like a little dock and that, and a few old buildings that were there, were homestead buildings from a long time ago, and some gravel on the ground, enough to make a little bit of a space to get away from things and call your own for a little while, to get away from the city and that, outside of Ottawa, the nice view of Lake on the Ottawa River, I should say. And I was getting used to it, and then of course, and we decided also to attempt to use the inside big bus thing, which is a work in progress at the time. And what happened, we were going to leave the stuff there and come back next spring. Well, unfortunately, what happened was, because he's retired now, he got a bug up his ass. He was going to finish it. You know what? I shouldn't be mad about it. I shouldn't care. I shouldn't care. It's not mine. I got to use it. Thank goodness. He let us use electricity. Thank goodness again. I should be grateful for that. But instead, I want to do more. I thought this was my opportunity to do more, be more. But again, I'm stepping in to somebody else's life and a relationship with someone that have already been there. And maybe I could get more out of it if I talked instead of presumed, like I did. And start getting overexcited and planning a future that may never happen. Just like the one I got now. This might not last. Maybe one day she'll walk in and say, listen, Mike, I'm sad enough of putting up with you and your doubts about me and all this, because she feels she's doing her part and she feels she's doing her, and she's deemed to do. I don't need this anymore. I want you to leave. She says she won't, but you know what? Mary said she wouldn't either. Tina implied she never would. And in the end, they did. So don't always, then she wonders why I can't trust the words that people say. Because things change. Circumstances change. People change. Not just her, but me. I change. I've changed in a lot of ways that I don't think I ever thought I did. But anyway, I did a bunch of those videos there. I'm going to post them on the channel. I also was at the Ottawa Senators Fan Fest just recently. Did a little bit of shots there. Also did some ringside stuff. Didn't stay very long because, let's face it, the event's very adult-oriented. I wasn't prepared. I should have brought my walker. I didn't go in together. I went in by myself. She didn't want to go on her own. We had her dog. That was a perfect excuse for her, because you couldn't leave her out in the sun, blah, 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 and that. We couldn't leave her at home, blah, blah. And plus, she also wanted to go to the site that same day. So this was just a stopover, temporary, just before we went to where we were eventually going to go. And, of course, that meant that it's in and out, and that was that. But I think we ended up going the next day. We didn't go that day. We ended up going. The event was on Saturday. I went Saturday after we left Sunday because it was a long weekend. So we went Sunday. We didn't stay the whole weekend because the weather was bad, unfortunately, and we ended up coming back later on. Anyway, we had a couple of events there, a couple times there. He's going to anyway. The long story short is he's fixing the site up. That's what he ended up doing. He's got all the materials. He was a project he had stopped for a little while. I would be more than wanting to help him if I had the means to. If I had my own car and the gas and I've got time and effort, I would love to go on the weekends and help him out, but unfortunately I don't have the ability to do that, so I can't. So he's going to do that over the winter time. It's his pet project. He's going to do that, take care of it, and then it'll be nice. And if we get the chance to actually lose it, because we had to go back and take our stuff, because we left our stuff there originally, and because of the fact he was working, he said, "Listen, we need to get your stuff out of there." I didn't talk to him directly. She talked to her sister. Well, not really talked, messaged, because she doesn't talk to anybody really. Their whole family doesn't communicate directly to anybody except when they're together, and they never talk about anything serious when they do. It's all just gossip and just chit chat basically. But anything serious was coming through Facebook Messenger. So they talked about this whole thing about them getting together, and she mentioned to her that we wanted to empty the site, so I hope you're going to go up there and clean it up. So that's exactly what we did. We went and cleaned the site up, and we took everything down. Fortunately, it wasn't that much. We had 2 tents that we'd set up, because originally we were going to stay outside. We weren't going to even use the camper until we realized it was really friggin' cold. And I looked at the camper and said, let's just take a look and see what the camper situation is, and checked it out. It looks like it had a lot of potential. So we used it for the few times we were down there. It was not bad. Plus, we went end of the season, pretty much close. This whole circumstance came about talking about this, and it ended up coming that we got offered this spot very late in the season. So we didn't even really get a chance to spend very much time there. So because of that, we didn't get to do much. I'm hoping, against all hope, the next spring we'll be able to go down there, and I'll be able to actually go talk to Martine and her husband Lee about look at the site and find out whether he will allow us to go back down there again because of what happened. Hopefully we will. And if we get up there, great, fantastic. We'll get to spend a lot more time there, because if things go away, I think they're going to, my dearest has been going for surgery, and she's going to have to be some time off work, and we're going to have to take time. We're working on vacation time, and that's all going to be a little short for cash because of this. So that will be our summer vacation. So obviously it would be real nice. So hopefully we get to be up there again. Hopefully I have the thing pretty much fixed up, or really a lot more fixed up than it was. We can use it more readily, and maybe I can talk to him about the system about adding things that he may not have a chance to add there. I don't know what he's putting in. I have no idea what he's doing to it. They got money, I don't. And hopefully, whatever they do, it'll be nice, and we'll hopefully get to use it. And it's also there for his kids. So ultimately, I think that's ultimately what he's doing for. He's not doing it for us. He's doing it because it's his. We came along. They don't mind us using it, but to treat it like it's our home, I don't know. I think we're going to end up finding that we're not going to be able to bring as much stuff up there as we did last time, especially if any of his family decides they want to use it, any of his kids want to use it. Not that they will, I don't think, but if they ever did too, because he's got a couple of kids, and ultimately I think what's going to happen, these properties, he's got more than one property that will probably be divided among several of his kids, and ultimately that's going to be their place to go. So he's ultimately fixing up for them, not us. We're getting the benefit of it. That's great. So in the meantime, I have to go back to the drawing board and figure out a way of finding a space that I can call my own. Maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. This is a part of being on this podcast. Tell you stories about my life, and hoping maybe enough people are interested. Listen to my stories about my life. Maybe you'll see something in your story. Maybe you'll see me and my sort of pros and wisdom, and hopefully maybe they'll do something good. Maybe give you some guidelines about things you can do in life to not make some of the mistakes I did. Because the old story is, if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it. And I'd rather not think about the one that Sting said, history will teach us nothing. I don't think history teaches us nothing. The question, history teaches everything. The question is, how much do we learn from it? The problem is not the history teaching us, is do we actually learn from it? Or do we think that we can change history in a way that it's not going to happen that way, and ultimately ends up happening exactly, or maybe even worse than the way it happened last time, because we think we're so smart. So on that note, I'm going to wrap this up. It's been going for 48 minutes, almost 50 minutes. I hope you guys stuck around for this long drawn story. I hope you were interested. If not, I hope to start making some straw videos. I'm hoping to put up another channel called Owl's Wise Wisdom soon, once I get back on my feet with this channel again, get things straightened out, where I'll start pushing straw videos about certain just interesting, silly things I find in life. Just sort of anecdotes about things and little lessons I think that might be important for you to learn. And I hope to have a new shirt for that. I'm going to have to have a new shirt, because this is the one I had Corey designed for myself. I appreciate me. The characters here, me. This part was designed partly by me and insistence of my brother Kevin, who's the art one in this family. Hoping soon to get all his artwork available and start putting some novelty products. I keep promising it, and maybe eventually I will. Once I do, I will announce it on Facebook, I'll announce it on all social media that the products were available and where to get them, and I'll be working out some pricing and details. I hope I get to going to do that. I got to get back to work. That's my story. I got to get back to taking control of things that I actually have some control of, instead of attempting to run the things I don't. It's a waste of energy attempting to manage things that you have no ability to manage. Stick to the things you do, and maybe the rest will take. Was it take care of the small shit, and the big shit will take care of itself? Maybe that's the lesson that comes out of this. Manage the shit you can manage, instead of attempting to manage the shit that you have no control over. Because by doing that, you're wasting a lot of time. So anyway, this is Mike for another session of iTunes. So I hope to put it on the internet tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon sometime, which is now the 11th of. This is. Oh, geez. This is Sunday, so of course we're actually I'm doing this. It's now Monday, 1:19 a.m. Monday. So keep in mind that in about 10 or so hours, 9-10 hours from now, we'll be celebrating the observance of Veterans Day. So remember, I don't have my copy. I wish I did. Remember to remember our veterans. They're very important people. We don't always treat them with the importance they have. They went and did the sacrifices for us in the service of their country that hopefully we never have to do again for our children. So keep that in mind, the fact that these things should never happen, and they should have never been asked to make the sacrifice in the first place by the people that would not make the same sacrifice themselves if it was their children being sent over the war. So think about that. Think about the whole thing about the way the world works. Think about it when it comes to things like the Ukraine war, for example. Think about the current Israeli-Palestinian conflict and how that's working out, really. I mean, think about the world economics and geopolitics. Think about how world things are in China and Taiwan, all the places in the world where people are constantly fighting over a little piece of land that none of us own because we're all going to die. We're all going to die. And when we die, the land is, as the Native people of America say, not ours. So, craziness. Fighting over land that we'll never own. None of us will ever own it. We just are caretakers of it till the next generation comes along. That's all we ever are. We live, we're born, we conquer, we die, we lose. We get planted in the same ground, eventually become part of the very same ground, no matter how much we attempt to put us inside of boxes to prevent the barrage of tide to turn us into dinosaur juice, or dinosaur juice, but turning us to crude oil, whatever, which we ultimately all become, and eventually in time as we've been brought in decay, as civilization and time goes on. I'm sure the civilizations that were built on top of civilizations were built on top of civilizations that those things were dug up. Probably never imagined that somebody's going to come along one day and dig them up and put an apartment complex on top of them. This is why the ultimate ironies about things. All these sites eventually someday will. All the sites we manage and cherish right now, just like the buildings we cherish and in our own society, who get turned down for other buildings, will eventually go down as people become less and less interested in remembering what they were, what the significance of them were, and are busy doing other things or distracted with too many other things to even care what they were or what they signified in the first place. And eventually they'll get bowled over and made into apartment buildings and nobody will care. And you know what? Why should they? Because in the end, when everyone dies and the whole planet blows up, they're not going to exist anyway. So being so sentimental about things like that is a human thing, and it's a fleeting thing. Each generation, the sentimentality for that, just like the sentimentality towards veterans, for example, fades in, which is why we need to never, ever forget the reason why the veterans fought and the reason why we should never, ever fight again. Any war, there's no such thing as any land, any cause, whether British or others, that worthy of killing one man, killing his fellow man. That is not productive in any way, shape, or form. It is totally, incredibly fucking stupid. And anyone that wants to do that should be killed by thinking that thought and let the rest of us live in peace. Really, that's the way it looks. That's the way I think. That's the way I see it. They should just, anyone that says I want to go to war, blow their head off. That anyone next. And if they did that, there'd be less wars. Funny enough, that's not the way the war works, does it? It's really kind of silly. Anyway, this is Mike. My silliness is just me being me. I'm just expressing my 2 million words of opinion, just like I always do. It doesn't matter unless it matters to you. So, anyway, on that thought, I'm going to close with this podcast. It's almost an hour long. Holy fuck. I might have to edit it down. Who knows? I might just put it raw. Or I don't know. Probably just going to put it raw and put it on the wall and see when it sticks. If you like this kind of content, like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Email me at info@endtimemedia.ca. If you've got any questions, suggestions, or comments about this video, look to my store, endtimemedia.ca. Look at our store right now. There's no stuff there yet. Look at the website. See what you think. It's in the process of being updated recently. I'm going to do it. I'm resolved to do it now. I'm going to put the stuff in the store before the end of the year so people can buy products because it's coming up Christmas time, and I want to be able to find you people, all you people, rocking my incredible shirts, rocking my incredible merchandise, and donating through your purchases to the incredible work that I'm attempting to do for not just myself, but other people. And if there's anybody that has an artist that once the site gets up and running, or an artist or a creative person in life that wants to display their work and has a sale for just master consumption distribution, contact me at info.endtimemedia.ca, and I'll be happy to talk to you because I've got all kinds of information about things I can help you do, that type of stuff with that I'm going to put in place myself. And I guess the fact is, a lot of my saying was the proof is in the pudding. So once I put myself and get my shit together, maybe then people will actually come. If you build it, they will come. So on that note, this is another week with My Two Loonies Worth. Check me on YouTube under My Two Loonies Worth. Check out our main channels at In Time Media, and check out the channels I did for Kevin and Douglas at Sweet Home Chicago on there. That I have all the videos from when they were showing up. Maybe we can get the boys to come back again. Maybe we can get the guys to put the band back together again. Wouldn't that be something? It was fun. It was fun last. Or maybe we'll put this out as a new project. We don't know. Anyway, I'll keep you informed or anything like that. If you got a band project that they want to promote, let me know at the same address, info@endtimemedia.ca. Anyway, I'm Mike. This is another week or session of My Two Loonies Worth. Take care. See you soon. Talk to you later. Bye for now. Where's the stop button? The stop button. Bye-bye. Welcome back. I am such a silly Billy. I'm going to put this on the end of the video. I was looking at the calendar because it's the 11th month, which is my birthday month, by the way. Thank you very much. Happy birthday to me coming up pretty soon. I hope that all you wish me all merry wishes on my Facebook post. Anyway, this is actually November 3rd broadcast, not November 11th. I was looking at the 11th and thinking it was Remembrance Day. Silly me. Anyway, this is not Remembrance Day. I repeat, this is a birthday test. If it was Remembrance Day, it would actually be. Actually, Remembrance Day is coming up. It is going to be. Today is actually Sunday. It's not Monday. I got screwed up. That is my fault. Me bad. Today is actually going to be Sunday. I recorded it Saturday, Sunday weekend of the 3rd and 2nd and 3rd of the month of November. Being the fact that the 4th of November is Monday, which is what the real Monday is, not the 11th, and the next Monday following is Remembrance Day. So like I said, keep in mind the fact is, be sure that you keep your poppies right next to you. And like I said, remember our veterans. And like I said, correction me, I may just put this on as an amendment to the other video. I'll put the videos together, edit it together, and maybe I may just take that whole section out. I don't know. We'll have to see. Anyway, anyone that sees the video afterwards that's got the amended video, I'm apologizing for being a fool. It's actually November 3rd, not November 11th. See, even old guys like me can mess up. Anyway, on that note, take care, people. That's the show for today. Good day. BDA. Thanks, young. Bye for now.